sun is a symbol that has fascinated many throughout history, tracing its roots back to ancient civilizations like Egypt. In these cultures, the sun often represented power and divinity. The black sun, however, embodies a duality. It's associated with darkness and the mystical. In alchemical traditions, it represents the hidden aspects of transformation and the unconscious mind. The Nazi regime later appropriated the symbol, giving it a controversial reputation. Yet, its original meaning stemmed from more profound philosophical concepts, including renewal and the cyclical nature of existence. Today, it continues to intrigue those who seek understanding of its complex symbolism and historical significance.
No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. Darkness, both in its literal and symbolic sense,
model of the Ark of the Covenant, because they have replicas all over the place. They have decoys all over the place, because you're talking about something of extremely high, not just historical significance, but spiritual significance as well.
In the vast field of alchemy, darkness is personified by the black sun, a symbol that carries both the idea of death and the promise of rebirth. This powerful archetype invites us to consider: is it possible that by confronting our own inner darkness, we may emerge more complete, more enlightened? Jung certainly believed so, and many other thinkers followed this same path, seeing in darkness the beginning of a journey of transformation and evolution. The black sun is more than a symbol of destruction. It is an emblem of the latent potential waiting to be revealed within us. Alchemy is an ancient tradition, rich with powerful symbols that describe not only the transformation of metals, but also the spiritual and psychological transmutation of the human being. Among these symbols, the black sun, or Sol Niger, holds a prominent place. For alchemists, the black sun represented the initial stage of the purification process, known as Nigredo. In this phase, raw, impure matter was subjected to a process of putrefaction, where its most basic parts would disintegrate to make way for something new. This phase of decomposition is crucial because only when the old collapses can the new be born. The metaphor is clear. Just as raw matter must decompose to reveal its pure essence, we, as individuals, must go through internal crises to transform. Can we reinvent ourselves without first deconstructing who we believe we are? This is the central question that Nigredo presents to us. For alchemists, the answer was an emphatic no. True transformation demands surrender to chaos, to the process of disintegration, where old internal structures, our egos, beliefs, and illusions, must die so that something more authentic can emerge.
I just want to preface this video with, there's lots of different symbolism and terminology around the black sun, but I've just, it's been a bit of an interesting kind of penny dropper for me, and I always know when I get on to a theme or something that it's going somewhere, and I don't know where it's going. And I've had this obsession with this spiral symbolism ever since Will Keller came on to Sky Earth to speak about love. And he spoke about all the different love gods, and particularly one of Philos being this brotherly love, and that love is a verb, and that's what the spiral represents, and going on the journey with others. And I've just been listening to Joseph Campbell and a lot of his stuff at the moment too, and obviously he's the one I always speak about when I talk about the hero's journey. It all came from Joseph Campbell's work, Hero Over 1,000 Faces, and he was talking about the same thing, and he was talking about not wanting or needing to change the world, but then changing the self, which changes the world. They both operate together, and that this is the spiral as well. And then when I started looking at more of the black sun in the last couple of weeks and the symbolism around that, now there's obviously the most famous picture of the black sun, which I think is a modern interpretation of the black sun, and only really came into existence in the 20th century, and it basically became synonymous with Nazism and stuff like that. It's kind of like a banned symbol now. But if you look at it, the wheel of the black sun is basically like a spiral. And this is why it's really interesting, because the black sun, of course, takes on so much different symbology and almost offshoots of the central symbolism, which is just the circle and the dot being the black sun. And it's actually the dualisticness of the sun and the black sun together. And if you just want to look at it in symbolic terms, and through Campbell's terms, the black sun is the equivalent of the abyss. It's the same with like Persephone that goes down into Hades, into the underworld. It's just, if you want to look at it not as a physical thing, and people that listen to me would know that everything is mirrored within physicality and non-physicality, so it's both. But if you wanted to look at it purely just as symbolism, it is a representation of going the most deepest into the psyche. So it's not necessarily a negative thing, although the black sun is associated with death, but also transformation. And I'll get into later in the video where I speak about Ebden Alexander, and where he was taken to the place where he says that he come from, and it was nothing. It was nothing waiting to manifest before it came everything. But I see it as a dualistic nature between the sun and the black sun. And I just found it really interesting that the symbolism of the black sun, which can be the four corners, the four pillars, it can be the eight, it can be the crescent that is depicted as a moon, and obviously depicted in so many of the resurrection gods, such as like, you know, Jesus and Mithra and Horus and all the rest of them, as they are both the sun and the black sun, depending on how you interpret that. But that's the thing, is because the sun gives the light to what is on the surface level, whereas the black sun is what is hidden. So even that within symbolism, that you will see the sun gods as the sun gods, as the sun gods, but they are also holding, I believe a lot of them, the black sun. And then some people will see like all these sun gods, it's all the black sun. I don't think it is. And you'll see the feminine symbolism within the black sun as well as the male. And I just listened to another one of Joseph Campbell, and he was talking about how in the Germanic pagan cultures, that the lion, he was talking about the symbolism of the lion being the sun, but he said within the Germanic cultures that in Central Europe, that the moon was the masculine and the sun was the feminine.
In the Bronze Age mythology, which is the basic mythology of antiquity, as I said earlier, the lion is associated with the solar image. Now, the moon dies into the sun every month and is born from it again. So the sun is the mother of the moon. In this mythology, the moon is masculine and the sun feminine. This hangs on in German, where you say der Mond, die Sonne, masculine moon, feminine sun. In French, you have the other mythology of the masculine sun and feminine moon, le soleil and la lune. This is one reason we have world wars. These two totally different consciousnesses. Totally different. And so here we have the lion associated with the sun, the source of all the energy and life in the world. Now in Egypt, with respect to Isis, she is the throne on which the pharaoh sits. She is the support. The pharaohs come and go, but she is there. And so also in the Byzantine Madonnas, she's not the nursing mother that she is in the Italian tradition. She sits there and the little Christ child is on her knee as the world emperor. You see, it's the woman as the ground base. That's good old Bronze Age thinking. Then the king becomes associated with the sun and the lion in either case, either as the child of the mother goddess and her lions, or as the solar god himself, so that the lion becomes associated with kingship. And the lion is the ruling animal, and in all the animal fables, It's King Lion, you know, in the Aesop's fables and all.
Was the feminine. I'd never heard this before until Madeline actually told me about that. This is seen in tribal cultures as well, and they call this the Moon Man. And I can put a clip in for that later, but I don't know much about it. But it's just interesting. Anytime you can back up anything like that with different geographical locations and different times that have the same thing. But then he goes on to explain that it's the opposite within France, and so you can just see that the energies of and like a language in itself is a completely different energy. And if you want to talk about culture, and especially what's happening to Australia at the moment, that's the biggest thing to shift culture and mismanage and disrupt culture is language. Language is culture. It's so important. And anyway, I don't want to go too much into it because I'll put the rest in the video. But I think there'll be more to come with this because it's something that I don't know a lot about. But I just wanted to put in here as the prelude that I'll be doing a lot of references to Saturn, and Saturn being the adversary in many ways of the Sun. And then if you look at the dualistic nature of the universe, that even like within the Gnostic texts and stuff like that too, that they talk about like the twin flame and also the adversary, and it's basically showing like a fractalized way of the way that the universe breaks up itself. So to have the Sun means you must have the black sun, and does that come in a physical form or not? But I'm going to do different references to Saturn, but I don't want people to completely think that Saturn, yes, is partially the black sun, but I don't think it's only that on one layer. On the layer of, when you're talking about the layer of the solar system, even the galaxy itself is a massive black hole, right? What do they say? They don't know anything about it, but it's also a symbolism of the mass unconscious. And as with Campbell says, when you go through the hero's journey, that this is an important part of the role, the death and the resurrection, which is represented by the black sun. So it's I want to bring it all the way back to the shrine. And when you have this relationship between the sun that shines through the ray of light at the top and hits the black sun, which can be seen as the underworld, and the sun is what is seen, what is conscious, and for those two to interact creates a point of balance, like the yin yang. And the black sun is also tied to catastrophe and resets. And then if you look at the whole symbolism around the shrine is it as a rebirth building. And I just kind of want to link some of it into the Ark of the Covenant, because that itself is a symbol of Centerpoint, I believe as well. Everything from the wind goddesses that holding it from the outside in gold to it holding the 10 Commandments, and the 10 Commandments are the law, and it's all center point into the point of Solomon's Temple, and Solomon's Temple being the hexagram, being a symbol of Saturn, but also being a symbol of the black sun, but also being a symbol of the balance between the masculine and feminine, the Solomon, which is both the solar but also the moon. And see, I don't fully know where I'm going with this, but it's like the play between the moon, the sun, the black sun, and it's all merging into one thing that I think will be a clearer picture to me. And yeah, if anyone knows more about it, yeah, pass it on. But I think this is what the Great Olaf Have No Man black cube in the center of the shrine is. It's this interaction between these two energies that's been played out for a future ritual. So I'll leave it at that. Very quick one. I've got to add this on because I've just woken up this morning and seen this Katy Perry story of her going into space, which is it's pretty bizarre, and it's obviously a very purposeful ritual. That this is probably the dominating headline this morning. Now, I pointed out last year that Katy Perry, when I was talking a lot about the heart symbolism and the destruction of care, and she kept always on her Instagram that would always hold like this this crystal heart. And if you listen to some of her stuff on Instagram, it's very new agey, right? New age spirituality that she's preaching. Now obviously she was with Russell Brand many years ago. Now, she stood under Christ the Redeemer just before she made her announcement to Australia, and she did the Sophia pose, holding the heart under the Christ. Now, the Gnostic texts say that Sophia she fell from the upper aeons into physical reality and then was followed by the Christ, and Jesus was the same soul, or what do they call it in New Age circles? They call it a twin flame. And that Sophia had the longing for home. But so interesting now, like she's come out of, done this space mission, they're claiming, and so she comes down, Katy Perry, and does the kiss to the ground, as in like the fall, and then she has to claim her own redemption. Now, the last time, just after I pointed out that she posted under Christ the Redeemer doing the Sophia pose, I think it was within days, Russell Brand then did the baptism. He did his big baptism video. So I'd very much be watching what Russell Brand's going to be doing. But this is going to tie into the Black Sun too, because when the Gnostics talk about the aeons, the upper aeons and the lower aeons, it's again talking about the light and the darkness, the fluidity and the rigidity of physical matter, and the two merging together, and that Sophia has this longing to return home after she took the fall. So, like, did she just take the fall? And again, it's going the same into the ritual of the shrine, with the sun shining onto the black cube and the black sun. So, g'day. So, I just want to put this video out there just because it's been a bit of a thought process. Talking to Nikki and about the shrine and the Ark of the Covenant, and it kind of came from this declassified document, which I think was actually declassified years ago, but somehow it's back in the news about this, the CIA document claiming to know where the Ark of the Covenant is, and using, like, it's a bit of a bizarre declassification. You got to wonder why they brought it into the news, but it was being put all through mainstream media, that it's under a dome building in the Middle East, and they're suggesting in the Jason Shirker video that it's under the Dome of the Rock.
5 a.m. on December 5th, 1988, and it says the following. Target is a container. The target is what they're looking for on the longitude and latitude lines. This container has another container inside of it. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver. The target is similar in shape to a coffin and is decorated with seraphim, which are like these gold-looking statues. This target is located somewhere in the Middle East, as the language spoken by individuals present seemed to be Arabic. Visuals of surrounding buildings indicated the presence of mosque domes. And I'm going to tell you right now that I know people are talking about, is it in Ethiopia because there's a lot of, Arabic-speaking people over there? No, it's under the Dome of the Rock, and I'll tell you how we know that in a second. But it continues on by saying the target is hidden, underground, dark and wet were all aspects of the location of the target. The purpose of the target is to bring a people together, meaning a religious object. It has something to do with ceremony, memory, homage, the resurrection. There is an aspect of spirituality, information, lessons, and historical knowledge far beyond what we know. And then it goes on by explaining something which I can elaborate on further of what this means. The target is protected by entities and energies. Yeah. And can only be opened by those who are authorized to do so. This container will not/cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. Once it is time to open the container, the mechanics of the lock system will be found to be fairly simple. Individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed, meaning they die, by the container's protectors, meaning its energies, through the use of a power unknown to us. Now, it sounds weird, but that's coming from the CIA. Let's not forget that. The British scholar of Semitic languages and Ethiopian studies, Edward Ullendorf, claimed that he saw the Ark inside the church during World War II. But a source close to Ullendorf later revealed that the artifact he saw was nothing more than a replica. What he saw was what you find in any Ethiopian church. It's a model of the Ark of the Covenant because they have replicas all over the place. They have decoys all over the place because you're talking about something of extremely high, not just historical significance, but spiritual significance as well. So in the Pyramid Code, a few days ago, we spoke about what was underneath the pyramids, and we cited certain things from that document that came out 5 years ago. Listen to what it says over here. King Solomon, King David's son, manifested the idea of the first holy temple, but it came at a heavy price to the people of the nation. The first holy temple was composed of three main parts. The main hall, the second part of the temple was the main temple, which contained certain objects, and the third part of the temple was known as the Holy of Holies, in which the Ark of the Covenant was. However, over time, and now I'm going to the bottom, it specifically says the place itself, which is known as the foundation stone, in the Dome of the Rock.
And this is a lot what I and others have been talking about for the last couple of years around if this is like the second seal event, that there would be, you know, some sort of civil conflict in the West, and it would be triggered by possibly attack on the Dome of the Rock to trigger Muslim sleeper cells within the West.
And there's a 100% chance that there will be a major terrorist attack in the United States, or many attacks maybe.
West. And so it's just interesting that they brought this out. But obviously, I'd love to get Nikki on and even Donovan to chat about this too, because they've been sharing some stuff. And but anyway, like the ark's super interesting. And Nikki's had this theory, and I'll let her talk about it when she comes on, that, you know, the ark could be at the shrine. And it makes a lot of sense, because I started going back, particularly when you look around in the sanctuary in the shrine, and they call it the Holy of the Holies, which is just absolutely bizarre that you would call that. And it comes from the place within Solomon's temple that the ark was kept, was called the Holy of the Holies. And I can put up the diagram here of Solomon's temple, and it's even within a cube-shaped area, and the cube's going to come into play here. I want to explain how important this cube is, and does this represent the black sun? And the black sun, you know, it's kind of popularized within Nazi symbolism, and they were said to worship or be obsessed, or certain people within the Nazi party were obsessed with the black sun, and they obviously were obsessed with collecting ancient relics and stuff like that. And there was even there's stories around them raiding, I can't remember what it was, but raiding a certain castle within southern France, looking for the Ark of the Covenant. And Hitler would send, large groups on these missions to find these certain relics.
The church may have brought these treasures, including the Ark of the Covenant, to the Catholic people.
The Ark of the Covenant in southern France? It's an intriguing possibility, one that in 1936 caught the attention of the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany, Heinrich Himmler.
Himmler and Hitler were both obsessed with obtaining relics. During the occupation of France, there were a number of Nazi brigades that were actually dispatched throughout the region of the Pyrenees into Montségur in search of the Ark of the Covenant. There are still tracks in the mountains today from where the Nazis were mining, essentially, in the mountains, looking for these potential artifacts. They truly did believe that the Ark may have still been there in those mountains.
Heinrich Himmler was obsessed with occultism. You have to remember that the occult had had a massive influence on Nazi ideology. And it may seem crazy, but he sent people out on these quests to find these sacred items.
The Ark was what led them to the Promised Land, and what actually carved out the boundaries of the Promised Land. So when you're talking about the Ark, it looks like it's a form of technology just within, it's like a conductor where it's got the gold on the outside and the gold on the inside. And I've been talking for a long time about how there is a form of unity and coming together and balance within the universe, and it goes through light vibration that just happens over time, just because it's waveform, and that's how the universe is made. And I believe we're coming into a point of 0 point and balance. And it's just interesting that Jerusalem is the city of peace, and I think so much is going to be highlighted around that region in the coming years. And Israel has, certain people within the government have even, spoke about wanting and advocating for the destruction of the Dome of the Rock. And obviously there's so much emotion tied to that building within all the different faiths, but And they said that, it's all about to build the third temple. So it's all kind of set there. But what I think too, because if people have understood what I've spoke before about reality compressions and what I said about the sentient world simulation, how it's actually collecting all this data of all humanity on the digital level, and it's feeding it into this simulated world that's actually being used by the Department of Defense. But that's only one example of what is being done with artificial intelligence. And I believe that if that's being done, that's actually being replicated in our lifetime now, then that is a mimic that is patterned all the way down through compressions of the universe, and that's being done in a digital way. So what I would think that the arc is that it actually represents a 0 point. And when you think about the cube and what I'm going to get into with the black sun, is the black sun is, it's death and rebirth, but it's also, the black sun represents creative potential. And when we're talking about the black sun, we can also go into the black cube. And I want to show like the references here with Saturn. And with the shrine building, there's so many references to different different aspects of astrology and the different planets. And I haven't looked enough into it, but I would kind of think, just off what we've found, that it kind of holds all of them within there. And what I think the arc might be is literally a piece of technology that holds the entire universe within it, within one. And this is what they would say, that when they would go to battle, the Israelites and stuff, that they were going out to battle holding like the armor of God, holding the Ark of the Covenant, because that was like God was within the ark, and you were never meant to touch the ark either. There's much more I could go into, but I'll kind of leave it at that in the moment. I just want to show the symbolism bit that's going to lead to the cube in the shrine. Now, the other part too is I've heard for a long time, and it's been suggested by many others, that most of the universe is actually binary star systems. Now, we don't have to go into all like the flat earth kind of stuff like that, but if you take the model that like the stars actually circle, but they circle in a binary like this over time, right? And it would make sense within, if you just look at the dualistic nature of the universe, and that those stars actually move around the greater star. So obviously we only see one sun, but then if you look at Velikovsky and Wallace Thornhill and Talbot's kind of work, and they speak about this catastrophe that happened in the skies in the ancient times, and it's represented in a lot of tribal culture and mythology, and also a lot of symbolism in the modern day. And then I went back and started listening to part 2 Wembley David Icke's talk from 2012, because I remember there was a lot in there about Saturn and the dark sun. And they talk that a lot of the symbology that we see now that's represented as the sun, he's suggesting through his work, and he's ripped off a lot of the stuff from Wallace Thornhill and Emmanuel Velikovsky. And there's a book there, Thunderbolts of the Gods, if people want to read that. And what they're saying was there was something that happened within Saturn. And the interesting part about Saturn is that this could even be the binary star system too, although Saturn does supposedly orbit the sun, is that Saturn gives off more energy than it absorbs, which is different from other planets. And then you go into like the Saturn rings and things like Norman Bergen's book, the Ringmakers of Saturn, where I can show some pictures in here where he's shown like through the Cassini project, and I can't remember what the other one was, where they got these photographs, and he said that some of the rings of Saturn were actually changing within minutes. There's some sort of electromagnetic technology that's being produced. And if you just look at like just waveform and sound patterns and cymatics and stuff like that, you can see that the Saturn rings are actually producing a frequency. And in Ike's presentation, he has a theory that the frequency of Saturn, because this makes sense within every level of the hologram of the universe, there must be an adversary. So it's almost like the Saturn and the sun are warring off with each other. And Saturn represents a lot of the stuff that the sun does as well. But Ike is theorizing that Saturn is like this broadcasting amplifier, and it's been shown that Saturn is producing more energy than it's absorbing, and then that's amplified by the moon, in which he calls it the Saturn moon matrix. but I'll try and get through some of these pictures here. But he was showing like the original and one of the most simple symbolism is like the dot and the circle, and this represents something that happened within Saturn, in which it gave off this huge energy over time, and that actually the positions of the planets were not the same as they are now. And this actually is backed up by the Gnostic texts, where they talk about that only the inner planets were part of. Now, this could be, if you're into simulation theory, this could be a simulation reset, in which actually the physical nature of the solar system has changed. But the Gnostics say that only the inner planets were organic and that the outer planets weren't. That would be Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. And then we can get into the whole Nibiru stuff. But anyway, that's why the Saturn symbol is actually the dot and the circle, which is also a symbol of the sun. But this is where you get the eye symbolism. Now, this relates back to the shrine too, because they call the eye the light that the sun comes through at 11:11, or meant to come through at 11:11, before they've tinkered with daylight savings time, and that's a whole different conversation on why they would do that. But anyway, so it comes through the eye, and it actually goes through the window, and the window is 7x7, and 7 is a representation, like Donovan said that before, it's like a lightning strike, it's heaven to earth. And 7 is this representation of bringing in and taking in the information from the divine or from the creator, and grounding it back down to earth. So it goes through the eye in the shrine and the light. Now, this is an interaction between, you can look at it as the sun and the dark sun that are both happening, or you can look at it the sun and Saturn, and that would be represented as greater love have no man on the bottom of the shrine, which is a black cube. Now, we can only see the top of it, but I would suggest that it actually is probably a cube form, and representing a potentiality. And this is another thing, because of the guy, what was his name? Dr. Edwin Alexander, who I've spoken about many times before, and others have this similar near-death experience, where they're taken to supposedly where creation comes from, as they go through all the layers of the heaven realm, in which people could suggest astral AIs or whatever, like just different layers of the hologram or different layers of the simulation, in which they go to the place of, where am I actually whole? Where does this come from? And Dr. Edwin Alexander describes it as a dazzling darkness. He said it's everything, but it's nothing but everything waiting to manifest, and it's represented as black. And it's kind of the same with the black cube. It's there to represent the potential of creativity and potentiality. So but it needs something a spark to amplify, and that, I believe, is the sun ray coming down. So it's this interaction between dark and light that plays out in so much symbolism and in all the nature of the reality that we're living in. And that's what I see this ritual as, and it's a rebirth ritual. Again, we've spoken about the shrine being like a womb, and it's being coming, because you got the 7 lights, right, too. So it's coming from earth. You got Father Sun, and Father Sun that's why the Father Sun reigns, and they refer to, like, even Satan and God as the Rain Man, because he comes down and he rains his seed onto the planet to start new life. So it's got all this symbolism in here too, as well as the 4 corners of the shrine. So that being within a 4 is also, I'll go to that in a bit, another representation of Saturn. But these are some of the symbols of Saturn within the eye, and you'll see this on the pyramid eye, the eye of Sauron in Lord of the Rings. So anyway, yeah, it's called the eye within the shrine. There's the one with Sauron. This is one of the older depictions from Wallace Thornhill, depictions of Saturn, and this is where you get the Saturn crest from. So they said, as it moved over time, and this is like telling you something hidden too. So like the black sun is something that you can't see. So I'm not necessarily saying that's Saturn, but it's in there within the symbolism too. And this is where you get the crescent that you see in all over the world. And it become a symbol of Islam, because as Saturn moved over time, that the crescent, like the similarities to the crescent moon, were adopted by religions like Islam. And this is why Jordan Maxwell used to talk about Islam is a lunar religion. He would say that, Christianity is a solar religion, Islam is a lunar religion, and Judaism is Saturn religion, but it's also it's got many others in there too. It's actually like an amalgamation. But you can say, and he said, this is an interpretation of why the men wear the beard, because it's the same as that crest, but it's also represented in the winged goddess, right? And it's actually the woman holding up the man, holding up the sun, right? So it's that play with the dualistic nature of the universe. And that's another symbol of Saturn. You can see it on the right side, the left side, how it's moved over time. But you'll notice that symbolism of the crescent everywhere. Obviously, you can see it in ancient Egypt. And see, these are always referred to as sun gods, right? With like Horus and stuff like that. But that's what Ike's suggesting, that this is not the sun god. It's a duping, and a mimic of the sun god. There you can see the four, I can't remember where this one was from, but like this is it might be a Sumerian, old Sumerian drawing, but it's got Saturn represented as the 4-2, and they call it the 4 pillars. Here you go, here's many other examples, and this is where you get like the Knights Templar and stuff like that. And people would obviously go, yeah, this is the fucking sun symbolism. But it's, and you can see it represented as 4 with the 4 crosses, also with the 8, but a lot of the times with this crescent moon. Sorry, not the crescent moon, but the crescent. And so Saturn also is represented by the number 8. And this is why you have the 8 key Sabbath days of the year. And anyone that's followed Mark Passio will know when he talks about his season of sacrifice, it's all about the 40-day period in which you split the solar calendar up into 40-day segments, and they are the Sabbath dates, the key Sabbath dates. I think, you have a Sabbath every Saturday, and that Saturday comes from Saturn. But then the key Sabbath days, like which would be like Halloween, Beltane, May the 1st, equinoxes, and the solstices, are all the key Sabbath dates and the ritual dates. So that is a depiction of where the circle is split up into 8, but it's also can be split up into 4. These are just other depictions, but this is where you get the horn god. This is where you get like Taurus, the horn god. This is also where, why they worship the bull and Baal, and then you get obviously Capricorn too. And so Capricorn being the horn god, and Cap again is where you get a Cap means head, but Capricorn is also astrologically aligned with Saturn. And this is where, like, everyone's heard the stories about Christmas and the Saturnalia festival, and where it was all centered around this place within Rome, which was called Mons Saturnus, or Capitoline Hill, and that became Capitol Hill in America when the Roman Empire moved over to America. The same bloodlines and the same story was then shipped over to America. But I want to try and show. So it's also because Saturn's at 8 too. It's also represented as the spider, and you'll see that a lot of the time. But you can see it in like the eye of Sauron. It's got clearly that is Saturn, and again like the eye, the same as the eye from the shrine, and then the crescent, all Saturn. So this one's a guy from, I think it was the Occult Saturn. I think this was like from the 20s or the 30s, but you can see here where he's got all the different depictions of Saturn on his dress, and they wear black, and that's what Saturn is represented by, black and red, which is like the colors of Satanism. But then that's, they all wear the black cloak, and that's why the judge wears the black cloak, because like Saturn represents law, Saturn represents commerce, winged gods and stuff, the same as the crescent. Again, more winged gods. This one on like the emblem of America, which has got like the 13 stars making the hexagram. Now this is where it's going to get interesting into the hexagram. There you see like the United Nations, again with the crest. That's the most ancient symbol. That one there, the circle and the dot. Obviously everyone will know that one. These are different depictions in brands that you can see everywhere. But this is the one too with the Saturn representing the 4 corners of the 4 pillars. So this is within the shrine as well too. You'll see like the Pope wearing it, the Queen. the cross also, like this is like you'll see Jesus a lot of the time with the halo there. It's the exact same god, same as Mithra. So this is another depiction of Saturn. So you got like St. Peter's Square within Rome. Down the bottom here are like the ancient symbols of Saturn. So you can see like, see the crest, and again into, I think that's like the 8-pointed depiction. So this was an old symbol of Saturn, and this is when the skies were different. So I always thought the St. Peter's Square was like a womb. And it can be represented like that too. Now you can see here, Saturn was also represented, and I'm trying to think, I forgot on my phone here, but it's called, I'll get it up in a minute. I can't remember. It's called like the Mason Triangle, and then they put the Star of David on the top, and the Star of David is Solomon's temple. It's Solomon. Now, so I've heard some say that all 3 syllables are the sun, Sol, Ol, and Mon, and then I've heard others suggest that Solomon is actually, it's quite obvious within Sol. Everyone knows what Sol means, sun, but it's actually the merging of the masculine and the feminine, which makes a lot of sense too, which when you're going into like the shrine ritual. But doesn't this look, so anyway, the one that they call it the Mason Triangle, and then the Star of David on the top being the capstone of the pyramid, or the enlightened. But you can see it in St. Peter's Square, and it looks awfully similar to the shrine again, doesn't it? Does it not? So there's one of within Masonry, how it's used to. And if you go into any Freemason, I've been to a few Freemason halls, and on the ceilings you'll see the sun, or like almost depicted like a star. It's like a sun with rays, and then you'll see the moon, which is like the merging of the two, Solomon. But then the 2 pillars also, the 2 pillars of Masonry is exactly the same as a representation of the crest, and that's holding up the sun. And it can be the same, it can be represented like a woman as well too. And you'll see, like even within the one within the shrine that kind of looks like the Ark of the Covenant within the crypt has got this box, and that's what supposedly they put like notes and stuff in there. I think they were donations or something like that, donations for the shrine as part of this bullshit story. But you'll see the golden wings on the Ark of the Covenant, and that's the same as like the 2 pillars there. It's the exact same symbolism, the exact same meaning of the 2 pillars. And you'll see this in like representing a gateway like Janus and stuff like that too, but it's also in like the Neverending Story. But this is stuff that used to blow my mind. This is where I'm going to get to the cube, and how this is part of the cube within the shrine, or the black stone. So this is what they call the Saturn, the magic Saturn square. And making it very simple is every single way, if you go horizontally, vertically, and even diagonally, will add up to 15. So it's a perfect mathematic formula. And obviously within numerology, you break the 1 and the 5 down to 6. You've got 666, right? So this is the 6, and this is where you get I'll put a hex on you, meaning, the 6, the hexagram, which goes to like the Star of David. And so I think like within 6 represents like groundedness, family, all those kind of things, right? But this is where it gets interesting, and you can actually unfold. So this is where you get the checkerboards from too. It all comes from that Saturn square, because it's form of dualism. But then you get the Saturn sigil, and it's basically what you do is you add up from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and if you join up all these dots, a bit like a dot to dot within the Saturn square, you'll get this symbol. And now people would have seen this everywhere, and that is the Masonic compass. So you can see how like people go, oh, this represents this represents this is a different symbol, and they're all kind of symbols of the same thing. And when you're putting your focus and attention onto these things, especially when it's done through ritual, and especially when they've put these symbols into buildings, and these buildings are heavily protected, none more so than the shrine, that there's an energetic play that is taking place between the two. So you can see there the Saturn sigil, then when you put it on its side, it makes a Masonic compass, right? And the shrine is a Masonic building. There you go. There's a 6-pointed star, obviously synonymous with Rothschild, in which their name was Bauer, and they changed their name to Rothschild after the red shield that was on their family home. And the red shield is this red hexagram. And so again, you can see like Israel, law enforcement, all these different things. And then even like on the dollar note in America, it actually, so you got the hexagram there and it spells Mason. So this is a really good depiction of, we got the two pillars, you got the 6-pointed star at the top, and again, the two pillars being the same as the crest, right? There's the Saturn Temple in Rome. There's Capitoline Hill in America, and I spoke about this before. This is why it was so interesting in Bendigo. The Bendigo's got a skull next to the Capitol Theatre, and cap means head. But yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. So if you showed like the Saturn cube before, this is where I'm going to show you with the cube. So Saturn's actually got a hexagon storm at its north pole, and it's got another, I think it's got an eye at the south pole as well too. So look, and this is a permanent hexagon storm. And if you look at it this way, so you can see there, you can put the Star of David into the hexagon, which will form a cube, which will form the Star of David, and then you can see there, you can form the Star of David into a cube. So the fucking 6-pointed star and the hexagon are both cubes. And then obviously you got the Kaaba that they walk around in Mecca, and they actually walk around it like rings around the black cube. So you can see like this is a massive place of potential manifestation, and every Muslim has to go there at some point in their life as part of the pilgrimage. So yeah, like that's obviously the crazy one. People would know the one at 9/11. So you've got 9/11's perfect because you got the destruction and the rebirth of the taking down of the two towers, of two pillars, the same as Solomon's temple. And then what do they replace it with? A black cube. So there's the outline of Solomon's temple. I posted about this one the other day. I'm just going through like a lot of these ones that I was screenshotting from these videos. Yeah, so the New Jerusalem Book of Revelation. The one who spoke to me held a gold measuring rod to measure the city. It's gated and its wall. The city was square in length and the same also within width. So it's talking about the city being square. Now, like, is this a city? Is this a real city? Is that talking about the temple? But like also the shrine is square. It's a perfect square. And then, so yeah, you can obviously see these ones in Wall Street. These are different cubes around the earth. This is how the cube can be folded out to even be the cross. This is Jesus, the same as Mithra. We've got Lady Gaga in there, but that's also another depiction of Saturn. And then you can, the symbol of Saturn, so there's the astrological symbol of Saturn, and then there's the hammer and sickle of communism, right? Which is kind of the same as the Grim Reaper. I think that's the god Sin. The interesting one about Saturn was there's actually, the Hebrew god of Saturn is called Sin. And so where did the law come from? And Saturn represents the law. The tablets, the commandments that Moses brought down came from Mount Sinai. If you break Mount Sinai down up, it's called. I was quite proud when I actually figured this out myself, because like, if you spell Sinai, it's Sinai, so it's the god of sin. It's got AI on the end of it, and it's very fucking interesting when the law was brought down from the Mount of Saturn, right? So here's like some of the things that Saturn represents astrologically. Saturn represents religions. So what's religions? Belief. So worshipping of all types. What's the shrine? It's absolutely a religious structure. Saturn rules banking. Saturn rules politics institutions. Saturn rules corporations. Saturn, the law court system. And then you got education, and that's why they wear the square hats and stuff when you graduate. This is why the judge wears a black cape within the court. So you got all these different things here, right? And then obviously Santa. And then in the Matrix, they call it within the Gnostic text the great architect of the universe. And which is represented as the white bearded man, because again, like the crest being the beard. So you see that in The Matrix, as well as many, many other movies where the wise man is the white beard. But then these are some of the best ones. So this is actually a cymatic drawing. And it shows you, like, if you go back to that cube of Saturn, or the hexagon on the north pole of the Saturn storm, when you're looking at cymatics, that's exactly what it is. And everything, like we've said before, is waveform vibration, is vibrational fields before anything becomes manifest. And Saturn rules physical reality too, and manifestation. So I don't know if people have seen these cymatic videos before, but basically it's like you put sound vibrations into a board, and you put sound and stuff on there, and based on the different tuning and stuff, it will form these different geometric patterns. And then it obviously goes into Dr. Emoto's work, where you can have negative and then harmonized vibrations. But this is the harmonics that you get off Saturn. And you can see that's what they're sound waves coming out of Saturn. That's what the Saturn rings are. So here's one of they call it the Eye, which is the Southern Storm, or the permanent Southern Storm on Saturn. These are other different, what do you call them again? Cymatics. These are cymatics of different structures, and you can see there with the cube, it's coming out in the perfect cymatric pattern. Perfect. Unbelievable, isn't it? So anyway, I don't know kind of where I wanted to go with this. I just kind of wanted to put that out and see what other people think of it. So yeah, like, so the whole point in like bringing this into the shrine is like, I can see that you can see both the sun and the dark sun within the symbolism of the shrine. And it gives a lot of credence to would they actually bring the Ark of the Covenant there? And I know people will go, oh, the Ark of the Covenant, it's symbolic. It's not actually a physical thing. Well, yes, it has to be both within the way the universe works. If there's a point of, if it's representing a certain thing that's happening inside with the human being or the human soul, a collective soul, then that has to be represented in a physical relic. It has to be. So I'm kind of giving it more credit now to, could this actually be like the device that controls like a reset of the simulation, or is it actually holding the entire, because when they say that, you know, the ark holds God within it. So what's God? God is meant to hold all the information of everything being done and seen prior and in the future, and everything. So it's all within there. So is it not possible that if you're creating realities and trying to hoard information of realities, that can't be put into the 0 point of all within one object? You know what I'm saying? And especially that's what Solomon's temple is, because Solomon is the merging of the masculine and the feminine energy. It's a point of perfect balance, and that's what the Star of David actually represents. It's this point of perfect balance and harmony. And that's what I've said the Christ is. The Christ is knowledge and love within perfect balance. It's the cross. It's the middle point of the cross, which is knowledge and love. And love is to understand both sides of the polarity within the horizontal cross, and within the vertical cross represents the layers of compression. So that represents knowledge, because that's the journey. Through experience you gain knowledge, and then through understanding the different polarities you understand love. And again, I showed before how the cross is also is going to be represented the same as the Star of David as well too. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just I feel like this is just a bit of a warm up before we get Nikki and possibly Donovan on in a week to present some of the information. I know Nikki's got like a lot, and she's been asking a lot of cool questions to ChatGPT that are actually fucking off the chart with some of the answers. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Cheers. It's the feeling of freedom in the unknown. So everything is a polarity within the universe. Everything has a counter expression. So if something exists, the opposite must exist.
More, the numbers you were born with are your natural tools and talents, okay? These are the radio stations that you are naturally plugged into.
I've been living on borrowed time for a very long time as well, luckily. So I have made sure that the time that I've had here, it's like a gift. My actual timeline, I really felt like if I could make it to 50, and I've done it now, I would be happy.
To what's going on in the world and to you seeing yourself in a totally new light, and you can never come back from that. It's like when a rubber band is stretched, it can no longer be put back to exactly where it was.
That's something that people will be able to take in or be able to use the lyrics at least and sing their own version of into the lays. And with the intent of clearing and cleansing and putting positive loving energy into the lay. Because we've had these Satanists hide the existence of the ley lines, co-opt the major portal spaces and do horrific things in those spaces for millennia. And what we need to do, and all we need is a critical number of people to do it, go in there and turn it around. When I realised that I'd actually chosen to come here, it was a realisation, not necessarily a memory. Then the pain went away.
Well, how exciting is this? We are definitely doing another event. Where's it going to be and who's it going to be with and all this stuff. And we can finally announce.
Going to go to Adelaide and we're going to have Rachel Vaughan presenting at the next one.